The most dominant story in national news this week is that of Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, directing the House committees to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. Speaker McCarthy live-streamed his announcement. Here's what he said.
House Republicans have uncovered serious and credible allegations into President Biden's conduct. Taken together, these allegations paint a picture of a culture of corruption. Now, here's what we know so far. Through our investigations, we have found that President Biden did lie to the American people about his own knowledge of his family's foreign business dealings. Eyewitnesses have testified that the president joined on multiple phone calls and had multiple interactions. Dinners resulted in cars and millions of dollars into his son's and his son's business partners. We know that bank records show that nearly $20 million in payments were directed to the Biden family members and associates through various shell companies. The Treasury Department alone has more than 150 transactions involving the Biden family and other business associates that were flagged as suspicious activity by U.S. banks. Even a trusted FBI informant has alleged a bribe to the Biden family. Biden used his official office to coordinate with Hunter Biden's business partners about Hunter's role in Burisma, a Ukrainian energy company. Finally, despite these serious allegations, it appears that the president's family has been offered special treatment by Biden's own administration, treatment that not otherwise would have received if they were not related to the president. These are allegations of abuse of power, obstruction, and corruption, and they warrant further investigation by the House of Representatives. That's why today I am directing our House committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. This logical next step will give our committees the full power to gather all the facts and answers for the American public. That's exactly what we want to know, the answers. I believe the president would want to answer these questions and allegations as well. This effort will be led by Chairman James Comer at the Committee on Oversight, in coordination with Chairman Jim Jordan for Judiciary Committee and Chairman Jason Smith on Ways and Means. Now, I do not make this decision lightly. And regardless of your party or who you voted for, these facts should concern all Americans. The American people deserve to know that the public offices are not for sale, and that the federal government is not being used to cover up the actions of a politically associated family. Now, I would encourage the president and his team to fully cooperate with this investigation in the interests of transparency. We are committed to getting the answers for the American public. Nothing more, nothing less. We will go wherever the evidence takes us.
Well, this is good news because we have a genuinely credible situation of removing a public official from office. But I must say from the beginning that conservatives have grown very skeptical over the last several years of anything actually getting accomplished as far as justice and fairness in the punishment of these politicians and public office holders that commit crimes and misdeeds yet never face any consequences for their actions. The prior Congress drug President Trump through this process twice over ridiculous claims, but we'll talk more about that in a moment. We talked about the legal guidance for impeachments last month when we were discussing the imbalance of justice in our country. Now is the perfect time to revisit some of that. Article 2, Section 4 of the United States Constitution is short and concise on matters of impeachment as it reads, "The President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. The part about impeachment for and conviction of refers to the joint process which you are about to witness. The trial conducted in the House of Representatives, that's the impeachment for part, and then the conviction of part is the Senate half of it. That's the process that Speaker McCarthy is referring to, during which they will determine to see if President Biden is guilty of any of the four things mentioned as impeachable offenses in the Constitution: treason, bribery, high crimes, or misdemeanors. Treason is somewhat defined within the Constitution itself in Article 3, Section 3, when it says, "Treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them," the United States, "or in adhering to their enemies, giving aid and comfort." The question in regard to this offense is, has President Biden given aid and comfort to our enemies? Well, I guess it depends on who is defining friends and enemies. By all means, the United States needs to have a functional relationship with China, at this point in time, at least. But China is by all means an enemy, and they don't pretend like they're not, and we don't need to pretend like it either. However, President Biden treats them like they're a friend and like they're not an enemy. And the same could be said about Iran. But clearly from Speaker McCarthy's press conference, this is not the charge that they're going to be pursuing. Bribery is the second impeachable offense listed in the Constitution. We talked about the fact that a bribe is money or favor given or promised in order to influence the judgment or conduct of a person in a position of trust. A more general but Latin phrase that you've heard before would be quid pro quo, which simply means something given or received for something else. The evidence is really piling up on this charge, from text messages and testimonies to emails and financial records and more. And you can tell from Speaker McCarthy's speech that this will be one of the main focal points or charges of the trial, and likely what he'll be impeached for. And there's even this video, which I'm sure will be presented as evidence in the trial.
I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
This is from Biden's time as vice president, and when his son Hunter was being investigated for corruption in Ukraine, of all places, by a Ukrainian prosecutor. This is from the horse's mouth that Biden withheld financial aid from the United States to Ukraine in order to shield his son from trouble. Quid pro quo. Now, I'll bet that at some point, the media or even the president's legal team will mention the fact that these things only happened, when Biden was either senator or vice president, but never since the office of the presidency. But that doesn't matter because of the last two listed offenses and that he's currently in office as president. High crimes are basically crimes committed in high office, but misdemeanors is a general term in the constitutional context, which means misbehaviors or misdeeds. Why did the framers use such a general term for such a major act? I think it was intentionally general so that people could decide for themselves to remove someone from office they believed was behaving in an unbecoming manner. For example, President Clinton was charged with this same offense of high crimes or misdemeanors for perjury or lying under oath, obstruction of justice, and abuse of power. Obviously, that last one having to do with his infidelity. Now, there are in those charges both high crimes and misdemeanors. Another thing you need to know about these trials is that this is the legislative branch conducting these matters. It has nothing to do with the judicial system, although it seems like that. It can seem like it is, but that means there doesn't have to be much credibility to these charges, as was obviously the case with President Trump. The point here is that if Congress wants you out, you're out. Now, Democrats these days are highly loyal to the party. So I doubt you would have many of those breaking party lines or opposing, especially a Democrat president. But here's the party breakdown. This trial will begin in the House of Representatives, which is a thin majority Republican House. There's 222 Republicans and 212 Democrats. If the impeachment passes there and moves over to the Senate is majority Democrat just by including the 3 independent senators, making that division 51-49. And then you add Kamala Harris as the president pro tempore. Once the House votes on the matters of impeachment, the Senate trial would begin, at which point, who knows what will happen? Who knows if he would be convicted of anything? Now, I've been wondering if the Democrats might want rid of Biden as well. But based on Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's response, I'd say not.
I think the impeachment inquiry is absurd. The American people want us to do something that will make their lives better, not go off on these chases and witch hunts. The bottom line is, as we've said, you can only accomplish keeping the government open in a bipartisan way.
The irony there is unbelievable, but his answer is quite telling, honestly. Now, you can see quite clearly just from Speaker McCarthy's speech the general direction of the impeachment inquiry. He says, "Through our investigations, we have found that President Biden did lie to the American people about his own knowledge of his family's foreign business deals." So there's 2 things there. The misdemeanor of lying to the American public and the offense of bribery. Maybe you could stretch it out to include treason, but we'll see about that. He added to that charge, "Eyewitnesses have testified that the president joined on multiple phone calls and had multiple interactions. Dinners resulted in cars and millions of dollars into his sons and his sons' business partners. We know that bank records show that nearly $20 million in payments were directed to the Biden family members and associates through various shell companies." That's very important. The Treasury Department alone has more than 150 transactions involving the Biden family and other business associates that were flagged as suspicious activity by U.S. banks. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing business overseas, but it's called abuse of power when you leverage your elected, taxpayer-funded position in public office to earn money and favors for yourself and your family. That's both high crimes and misdemeanors. The next one, however, is pretty cut and dry. McCarthy said, "Even a trusted FBI informant has alleged a bribe to the Biden family. Biden used his official office to coordinate with Hunter Biden's business partners about Hunter's role with Burisma, the Ukrainian energy company." That's an easy accusation of bribery. And then he closed with this accusation. "Despite these serious allegations, it appears that the president's family has been offered special treatment by Biden's own administration. treatment that not otherwise would have been received if they were not related to the president. This is clearly an obstruction charge, which again would fall into the same category of high crimes and misdemeanors. But in closing, McCarthy summarized the potential charges, saying, "These are allegations of abuse of power, obstruction, and corruption. The American people deserve to know that the public offices are not for sale, and that the federal government is not being used to cover up the actions of a politically associated family." So, we will see how this all turns out eventually. The majority of you are coffee drinkers, and maybe some of you fancy yourselves coffee connoisseurs. Well, whether you're someone who likes to down a quick cup to get a caffeine dose, or you enjoy the art of crafting an excellent cup of joe, you've got to give my friends at Blackout Coffee a shot. They've got bags of ground or whole bean coffee or single serve pods. They've got many different blends and flavors and roasts. My personal favorite is Morning Reaper. It's one of their medium roasts. So use my code BLAKE23 for 20% off. That's BLAKE23 for a discount, and level up your morning cup with Blackout Coffee.